Fred, we're here with Fred Tiagaraja. Fred Tiagaraja is a former deputy district attorney who has devoted his law practice exclusively to criminal defense. His practice area covers all types of state criminal cases, including DUI, DWI, domestic violence, and other violent crimes, theft, fraud, embezzlement, sex crimes. He also prosecutes and defends restraining orders. He is a very experienced in negotiating plea deals or plea bargains that protect people with professional licenses, and also negotiates immigration safe plea deals or bargains for non-citizens. He has conducted over almost 100 jury trials to completion. And welcome to our channel, Fred.
Thank you for having me.
Prosecutors, let's talk about Alondra Ocampo. Prosecutors have described Alondra Ocampo as someone who groomed girls who were later allegedly sexually assaulted by Garcia and coerced minors into pornographic photo shoots in hotel rooms. They said the alleged victims were told that if they were against Garcia's desires, they were going against God. You represented Alondra Ocampo, who has come forward. She's now alleging through you that she too was a victim. You said that Alondra Ocampo, who has reached a plea deal in the case set for trial in Los Angeles Superior Court, allegedly suffered years of sexual abuse in the church as a minor. You alleged in an interview that Ocampo was raped at the age of 8 by Samuel Joaquin Flores, a leader of La Luz del Mundo, who succeeded after his death in 2014 by his son Naason Joaquin Garcia, the current head of the church. Both have been known by the followers as the apostle of Jesus Christ. Now, Fred, our first question directly coming from our audience, in our channel, is, are you still representing Alondra Ocampo? It is not clear to us if you are still representing Alondra Ocampo. We wanted to ask you in person. That's why we wanted to have this interview with you, to ask you in person. Are you still representing her? And for those individuals who do not know about the legal process, because a lot of people in our audience that do not know about the plea bargains or plea deals, and they want to learn a little bit more to understand what's going on. How does that plea guilty, or how does that plea guilty deal work? The audience is, of course, totally confused about this deal with the government, and they think that cutting a deal means that they're accepting, they're accepting something in exchange for pleading guilty. The audience think there is something fishy going on here. How does that plea guilty deal work in legal terms, Fred?
Okay, so first of all, I am still representing Alondra. So her case is actually still open, although she has pled guilty to certain crimes. She has not been sentenced yet. So I understand that many of your viewers and subscribers may be more familiar with, for example, perhaps the legal system in Mexico than in the United States. So in the United States, pleading guilty involves two parts. There's first the admission of guilt, and then second comes the punishment or the sentence. And in Alondra's case, those proceedings have been separated. So she pled guilty in October of 2020, but she is not going to be sentenced until later this year. So her sentencing is being pushed back, and so she has not been officially given a punishment yet. In terms of pleading guilty, I think not just your viewers, but I think many people in this country, they get their understanding of the law based on TV and movies and what we see in in entertainment. And so everyone might believe that going to trial happens a lot. The reality is 99% of the time, people are making plea bargains. If you're accused of a DUI, if you're accused of domestic violence, if you're accused of theft, 99% of those cases result in plea bargains. Okay, very, very few cases go to trial. Basically, a plea bargain is an agreement with the government that in exchange for pleading guilty, you will get a specific punishment. And there's nothing bad about that. There's, that's just the way the system works. It's plea bargains is similar to any other kind of deal. If you go to an auto dealership and you want to buy a car, you're coming to an agreement with the auto dealer. I'm going to buy this Mercedes for this amount of money. That's the same thing with the plea bargain. I'm going to plead guilty to drinking and driving. In exchange, I'm going to do some classes, but I'm not going to go to jail. And that happens all the time. That's what's going on in Alondra's case. She has made a plea bargain. She is pleading guilty to some crimes. She is getting something out of it. But everybody who pleads guilty in a plea bargain is getting something out of it.
Right.
Just to take it back, if you are accused of a first-time drinking and driving offense in California, the maximum is 6 months in jail. Nobody gets 6 months in jail. Everybody comes to court, they say, I'm sorry, Your Honor, I plead guilty to drinking and driving. They get 0 days in jail. That's 99% of the cases. Alondra was facing, over 60 years in prison and tons of charges. And she made a deal. And in that deal, she is pleading guilty to 4 charges. So she has 4 felonies that she has pled guilty to. And in exchange, other charges are most likely going to be dropped. Now, one of the reasons why Alondra is getting a deal is because she's admitting to her guilt. So she has admitted to her role in this, basically this human trafficking, sex ring that was led by the apostle. And Alondra's, her story is very personal, but some aspects of this are just interesting from a legal perspective because Alondra is both a defendant and a victim. She is both a suspect and a victim. She had played some role in this. She did do some bad things, but she was also brainwashed and victimized from an early age. She herself was groomed into what she is now. And this is actually a fairly common phenomenon when you have young girls or boys, but young children who are victimized over the years and groomed over the years. Then when they get to an older age, they become brainwashed into thinking this is normal, and then they end up helping the people that abuse them. They end up helping them to find other children. In Alondra's case, and in the victims of that are in this case, I think it's even more twisted because when Alondra is helping the apostle, she thinks she is doing the Lord's work. She thinks she is actually doing the right thing when she goes out and targets other girls for the apostle, just like she was told that that the abuse that she suffered was, in the name of righteousness, and this is the pathway to heaven. And so, she grew up in this very twisted world where doing, engaging in sexual behaviors and forcing others to participate in sexual behaviors, forcing minors to participate in sexual behaviors is to walk, in the light and is the pathway to heaven. So it's a very complicated situation. It's a very tragic situation. Alondra, even though she has been forced into this life, she recognizes that she is still partially responsible despite being groomed into this world. Mm-hmm. And that's why she has pled guilty to some of these crimes, accepted responsibility for the things that she has done, but is willing to now come forward and testify about the things that were done to her.
Wow. Thanks for your answer, Fred. Alondra Ocampo could not afford a public defender. The audience question is, who is paying for Alondra's lawyer or defense? Fred, who's paying for that?
Well, Alondra can afford a public defender. The public defenders in this country are free. So, if Alondra wanted, she could have had a public defender representing her, just like anybody accused of a crime can have a public defender representing them. Sometimes, though, And as an aside, I think the public defenders in this country, for the most part, are very hardworking.
Right.
They're very passionate about their cases, but they are overloaded with cases. So if you can afford to have a private attorney, sometimes that's a better choice because a private attorney will be able to pay more attention, to your case.
Right.
And that's how I've built my entire practice, is being a private attorney and giving more attention to my clients. Now with Alondra, her husband is the one that has paid my services. I think there is maybe some question, certainly, as to where her husband obtained the money to pay for the services in such a complicated case. I can speculate that the church was probably, secretly paying for my services up to the point in time that, Alondra was a co-defendant along with Oaxaca and Garcia. But obviously, as soon as Alondra decided to take a deal and is expected to testify against Garcia and Oaxaca,
Right.
I imagine that those funds have dried up. But I have committed to representing Alondra, whether I'm paid or not paid. I've already committed to representing her to the end of this case.
Great. Thanks for your answer, Fred. Does the leader of the church, or Naason, recognizes her as a member of the church, or as an ex-member of the church? Does he recognizes her?
I mean, I haven't had communications with Garcia, and I don't know what he thinks beyond whatever his lawyers argue for him in court. I'm sure at one point in time, clearly, Garcia valued Alondra because he used her to, target and groom other girls on his behalf. So obviously, he placed a lot of trust in her at one point in time. Since then, I'm sure he doesn't recognize her, obviously, as a member of his community, and he probably thinks, he is probably telling other people to think that she is, a sinner, or she's against the church and whatnot. But I don't know what's going on in his head specifically. I don't know if he even believes what he is saying. He just might be the greatest con man in the world, or maybe he really believes his own. He really believes that he is a god. I can't tell what he's thinking. I only know what his lawyers are arguing.
Thanks, Fred, for the answer. Very complete. Now, a very difficult question that I'm going to ask you, and it's coming directly from the audience, and it's from YouTubers, and specifically that are members of the church. A religious conspiracy theory has grown among believers and defenders of Naason, Mr. Garcia, that had to do with the Catholic Church. We need your help to answer this difficult question, Fred. Many believe the Catholic Church set them up, that he was somehow framed. He was framed by the Catholic Church. The audience needs to hear from an official authority if this is real or is just totally bogus. Is there enough evidence against Mr. Garcia that could leave this conspiracy theory out of the equation, Fred?
Yes. I've never even heard of this conspiracy theory until, you are bringing it to our attention, now. I want to say that the believers of the church, sadly, are the ones that are in the conspiracy. There is a conspiracy, but that conspiracy is being, it's being fed to them by Garcia. They're the ones that are living in this illusion that Garcia is somehow, this holiest of holy men, but once they see the evidence, they're going to see that he has engaged in the most depraved sexual conduct. He has had, sexual encounters with children, with multiple partners. He's made family members have sex with other family members in front of him. He has had just the amount of, evidence that's against him, the amount of things that he has done would, if the public were to really be aware of all the evidence against him, it's just shocking what this man has engaged in, all in the name of God, all in the name of religion. There's no conspiracy. The only thing, he has put himself in this position. He is the one that has done these things. This case isn't going to be about members of the Catholic Church coming in and testifying as to the bad things that this man has done. There's direct witnesses, women, children. They're going to come forward and say, this man did these things to me. Okay, that's not a conspiracy. That's just actual evidence of these crimes taking place.
Thank you for your answer, Fred. Very complete. Does Mr. Garcia talk to Alondra? Do they have any communication with each other?
No, they have not talked. Well, both of them are still in custody, and obviously communication between people in custody is, I wouldn't say it's not possible, because I'm sure sometimes it occurs in certain situations, maybe. Obviously it would occur illegally, but I can attest that Alondra has had no communications with Garcia since the day she was placed into custody. And clearly since the point in time that she's agreed to plead guilty to some of these crimes, there's been no communication between the church and her.
Is Alondra scheduled to testify against Mr. Garcia during the trial? Would she be allowed to watch the evidence?
Yes and no. So, first of all, although I anticipate that she probably will testify, it's entirely up to the government whether or not they want to call her as a witness or not call her as a witness. And actually, in theory, the defense can call her as a witness as well. Garcia has the right to put Alondra on his witness list and have Alondra answer his lawyer's questions, although I don't see why he would. But either side can call Alondra as a witness, and so she has not been subpoenaed yet. But if she is subpoenaed to testify, she will show up to court and she will answer whatever questions are put in front of her.
How is Alondra being treated in prison by other inmates, Fred?
She's safe. She is actually she's in an isolated group with other female prisoners also being accused of similar types of crimes. So she's not in what we call there's something called general population, or Gen Pop. That's where sort of, the vast majority of people accused of crimes are all mix and match. Right. She's in a specialized unit or segregated unit. And the inmates in that unit are all, facing similar crimes. And so she is safe there. And, she's being treated well by the other inmates there. She has no safety concerns. She does have safety concerns once she's released from custody. She does, believe that the church will retaliate against her in some way. And so she has safety concerns once she's released from custody, whenever that might be.
Thank you. How would you describe her emotional and mental state in regards to Naason, in regards to Mr. Garcia and La Luz del Mundo?
With respect to Garcia, her range of emotions are they're complex. It's not just one.
It's not just
one. She feels sadness that this man has tormented her. This man and his family have abused her for decades. That this man has, forced her or brainwashed her, tricked her into doing, these sordid things on his behalf. And she feels anger that, it's his actions that have placed her into custody, and that he has betrayed her, betrayed her faith. She is actually still a very, very spiritual person. She believes in God. She believes in a higher power. She just no longer believes in the teachings of, of LLDM, and no longer believes in Garcia. But she is working on her own path to redemption now, after being sullied by Garcia and his teachings, so to speak. So she feels anger at him. She feels a profound sadness, and she feels some righteousness as well, that she now has the chance to, to hold him accountable for the things that he has done to her and to others. As far as the church is concerned in general, Garcia is not the only one that has been, coordinating these, these sort of abuses, although he's the main figure. There are other members of the church that have allowed this to go on. But it's a tiny majority, and Alondra believes that the vast majority of the people who are members of this church are good people. They're just being led astray. So she has no ill will against most of the people in LLDM. She thinks that they are, good people that are being, tricked into believing a cult,
Right.
She, but she has learned the truth, and she hopes that others will as well.
What kind of life would she be having after sentence, Fred? Is there any protection by the government after she returns to her normal life?
Possibly. To tell you the truth, I haven't really explored what all the things that might be available to her, after her case is over, after she is sentenced. One of the things, the crimes that she has pled guilty to, she would be required to register as a sex offender. So that is going to be, sort of haunting her or on her life forever. And, that will limit her ability to interact or be near children. But in terms of, what other life she has, fortunately, her husband is, has stood by her side, is very loyal to her. So I imagine that they will be, living together somewhere, reunited. And even though a lot of people in the church might, have these strong views against her, I'm hoping that there are a lot of ex-church members, and a lot of other people who can see this so-called church for what it is, that they will support her. She's already received many letters of support while she's been in custody from other people who have been victimized or who know the truth. She has received letters of support.
Is Alondra scared of something or someone? And what is she scared of, Fred?
Well, she's scared of the retaliation by Garcia and his family members and the other upper echelons of the church. She knows that they have retaliated against people that have gone against them before. So she is physically concerned for her safety. I don't know if scared is the right word, but she is concerned for her safety.
She's
and the safety of her, her physical well-being. And of course, I know that the church is trying to malign her. There is talk on Reddit and other, sort of social media, platforms that she's a bad person or she's a sinner or she's evil, but she's not concerned about those things. She has gone through so much in her life. Those things aren't going to break her or shake her. It's her physical safety is of concern, but she is still, despite these concerns about her physical safety, she's still committed to doing the right thing.
Thank you, Fred. You've been greatly criticized by members of La Luz del Mundo for being biased in regards to this case. What do you have to say to those members based only on the evidence, Fred?
For people to accuse her of being biased, they clearly don't know what a lawyer does. My job is to be biased. My job is to always be biased in favor of my client. That's what my entire profession is about. I'm not, in this country, we have what's called an adversarial system. That means that when you're accused of a crime, there's one lawyer that represents the government's interests, and there's one lawyer that represents the client's interests. And then there's a third neutral party called a judge. And the two lawyers on opposite sides, they fight against each other, representing each client, not just in criminal, in civil. If if Microsoft decides to sue Google, Microsoft lawyers and Google's lawyers are going to fight. There'll be a judge, a neutral person, like an umpire, kind of trying to figure out what goes in, what comes out, what's fair, what's not fair. My whole job is to be biased in favor of my client. So when they accuse me of being biased, they're right. I am biased. I'm completely biased in favor of Alondra and all my clients. But I will say, based on my review of the evidence, that it's quite clear that Alondra is telling the truth. It's not even close. It is. I am 100% confident that what Alondra has said is true, and that what Garcia has done is despicable. And I can tell you that already the members of the church are being brainwashed into thinking something else. I'll give you an example. When Alondra's parents, who unfortunately they haven't talked in a long time, and there's been a falling out between her parents and Alondra based on this case. Mm-hmm. When Alondra's parents were first confronting Alondra about her role to testify or to plead guilty, and the fact that she is seemingly going against the church, originally they were told these things never happened. So in the beginning of the case, Alondra's parents and the other members of the church, they're being told none of this ever happened. This is not true. Garcia never did these things. These people are all lying. But now, as more and more evidence is surfacing, and now as Garcia is learning through his lawyers how much evidence is against him, the story has changed. Now, what Alondra's parents are telling Alondra is, even if it did happen, it's okay because he is the man of God, and he can, and what he does is God's will. Okay, why does that story have to change? Okay, the truth. I'll tell you what doesn't change. The truth doesn't change. Okay, the only thing that's changing is what Garcia is now telling his members to try and justify what's going to come out, to try to explain the mountain of evidence that's going to come out. Okay, so that's what keeps changing is his explanations and what he is telling his followers and what they're believing. What's not changing is the truth.
Is the truth. Thanks, Fred, for your interview. We'll love to have you at the Innovation Group channel again. We had such an interesting and deep conversation, such a productive interaction. We'd like to have you back if that's possible.
Sure.
If possible, if we can have, an interview with Alondra Ocampo after the trial, that would be great, if you can accept that in our channel. Thank you for being with us, Fred. We appreciate your time, and please keep us posted regarding this case, regarding the trial, and have a great day, Fred.
You too. All right, thank you.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Bye-bye.